Hi, you've reached the High Fashion Hotline.
Hi, my daughter just texted me some emojis, and I'm confused.
Can you describe them?
There's T-shirts, shorts, dollar signs, bunch of clapping hands.
She's saying go to Old Navy.
Old Navy?
Yep, right now, new summer styles are up to 50% off store-wide, with tees from $6 for adults and $5 for kids, and shorts from $12.
Up to 50% off?
Yes, plus all clearance styles are up to 75% off at Old Navy and OldNavy.com.
Now that I understand. I'm going to Old Navy now.
High Fashion, Old Navy. Valid 7/11 to 7/23, select styles only.
What Patriots running back is the best bang for your buck in drafts? Should you be drafting Amari Cooper over Dez Bryant in the second round? And which rookie tight end has the best shot to help you this year? Plus, former FPC league champ and current Pros vs. Joes drafter Steve Rizas joins the show to discuss his strategy for the Pros vs. Joes contest this year, which end of the third round receiver he likes best, and much, much more. We've got a great show for you. David A. Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Master plan. Cause ain't nothing but sweat inside my hands. So I dig into my pocket, all my money spent. So I get deeper, but still coming up for lint. So I start my mission, leave my residence, thinking how could I get some dead presidents? I need money. I used to be a stick-up kid, so I think of all the devious things I did. 1, 2, 3, 4. I used to roll up, this is a hole up. Ain't nothing funny, stop smiling. You still don't nothing move but the money. But now I learned that.
Broadcast live and heard around the world. You are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
I don't like to dream about getting paid, so I dig into the books of the rhymes that I made.
Thanks a lot, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Gerzak addicts. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com right here on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is indeed the patron saint of fantasy football, the Dizzle, David A. Gerzak. So I'm doing the David A. Gerzak. Do you not want me doing that anymore? Your head's snapping at me every time you hear it. I can't tell if you like it or not.
It's a little unusual to hear it out loud.
Should I say it out loud, or you want to go back to Dave?
You can call me Dave. I use David A. Gerzak.
So David A.
I read an article once that people think you're smarter if they see the initial.
And now you know that when people listen to the show, that's thrown out the window.
Yeah, I can't fake it. Doesn't matter.
So if in print you're David A. Gerzak, on the air,
smart.
you're Dave Gerzak.
I'm smart in print.
You are back on the show. We missed you last week, although props to Farrell Elliott for filling in. Did a great job. A lot of positive feedback on that show. How was your trip?
It was great.
Good. A lot of fun?
Yeah.
Little work? A lot of fun.
Very little work. My freckles have come out.
I noticed. You look like George Hamilton.
Thank you.
It's quite the tan you're sporting now.
Oh, yeah, It'll be gone in a day.
Yeah. Well, Wisconsin, that's just dumbs the brakes. Coming up on tonight's show, is it smart to let Ezekiel Elliott slip in drafts? Who are you picking first, Jack Doyle or Eric Ebron? And a contestant in this year's FFPC Pros vs. Joes festivities and former Football Guys Players Championship League title winner Steve Rizas drops in to talk about drafting for strength of schedule and who he's picking first between Melvin Gordon and Devontae Freeman. Plus, as you know, much, much more. Shout out to the chat room right now.
The one I can't get into.
You all can post any questions you might have in there. If you want to connect with us on Twitter, you can do so at HSFFhour, at Eric Balkman, at David Gerzak. Facebook.com/HSFFhour is the URL there. Give us a call at 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVA. You can also email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us or for Steve, now is the time to get them in to our producer and mutual friend Rob, as well as our audio engineer Bryce, who will do their best to get to all those questions in fantasy feedback later on in the show. Are you still having problems getting into the chat room tonight? Everybody's full up in there. We got Two-Packer, Mint Montana, Jimmy Wagner all hanging out in there.
Jigya, G-I-G-Y-A. If they're publicly traded, hey, Meyer, if they're publicly traded, short that stock. This company sucks. Their social login doesn't work.
So,
and of course, I don't know my own login and password. So
that is a problem
I'll
as well.
Figure that out myself.
More stock tips already early in the show.
Yeah,
before we get to fantasy football, I want to remind everybody to go to myffpc.com to sign up for the 2017 Football Guys Players Championship, the main event at Planet Hollywood Of course, satellites, draft experts, Superflex, all open. Dynasty starting at 77, online sats starting at 35. Double ups were introduced last week. They've been selling. People are enjoying those.
Did you talk about the double ups?
100% payout. We talked about it on the show a little bit. Anything else you want to mention?
No, I think it's people are liking it. It's pretty neat.
People are digging it. And shameless plug, if you want to help us win an award, go to podcastawards.com. and click that you are a podcast listener. We are up. They've listed all the categories. There's like 10 categories. We're enlisted in 2 of them.
What are the 2 categories?
The People's Choice Award, which is like sort of the best of the best.
Did you submit us for this?
I listed us, but I mean you have to get a certain amount of clout to be listed for this.
These are the potties that I was talking about?
Yes, these are the potties. So we're listed for People's Choice, and then we're also up in Sports and Recreation podcast. So
you have to compete against like the marijuana, but Sports and Recreation. I imagine that's like sports, and then like like the marijuana legalization type podcast.
No, there's a political.
That's recreation.
Yeah, the recreation. This is like playing sports.
Oh.
Not like recreational drug use.
All right, forget it.
So you need to go there, and you don't need to. We would like you to, but we have to be nominated to make essentially the final cut, which is usually between 7 and 10 podcasts.
So no, seriously though, what's the website?
Podcastawards.com.
Okay.
Simple as that. So check that out.
Stuff that ballot box.
Yeah, exactly. But just get us to the next one. We've actually never made it this far before. The fact that our name is on the site.
I wasn't even aware of it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Why don't I put it into the thing?
Yeah, go ahead and put it in there. Podcastawards.com.
I'm still not logged in. That's amazing.
That's a problem.
I reset my password.
Jimmy Wagner says the social login is broken tonight. Normally works.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Blog Talk Radio.
Jimmy is validating my...
BTR customer service closed on Friday nights, too, unfortunately. Let's get to the Fantasy Flash, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks to Football Guys, Roto World, and Rob for prepping tonight's rundown. Some interesting news about Ezekiel Elliott this week. Philly Voice reported an appearance by ESPN's Adam Schefter on the Sirius XM radio program with Adam Kaplan and John Hansen, whatever. I think that's the Fantasy Guru show on Sirius XM. They asked Schefter about the domestic violence case or domestic abuse case that is allegedly involving Ezekiel Elliott that the NFL continues to investigate. And Schefter had some interesting things to say about this.
Let's hear about it, folks.
Schefter said, I would just say this. It is definitely a factor. If I were drafting today, I would be hesitant to draft him. But this is a situation that has gone back and forth so many times. And then a decision that many people thought would come before the start of the 4th of July weekend on Friday, when the NFL usually makes a lot of decisions, hands down some news. I was told that was being pushed back. Now, why is that being pushed back? There have been more meetings between either Zeke's people and in the league or the NFLPA in the league or whoever. Nothing may well happen there, but something could happen there. We just don't know right now.
Way to make a statement.
It's just sort of out there. So obviously we know how plugged in Adam Schefter is in NFL circles. He's rarely reporting anything that doesn't have some sort of truth to it or is not based in reality. So I think you need to listen to this, Dave. But if you look at FFPC drafters right now, They are not dinging Elliott at all. Still comfortably at that 103 and not dropping from there. I had seen him slip. I saw him slip to the 105 the other night. But most of the time I'm seeing him still go at the 103. Is that where you would be picking him, knowing this?
Well, it is something to take into consideration. I mean, he could get a 2 to 4 game suspension. Is that what you're thinking? Is that what...
I was thinking more like 2. I don't know if he'd get popped for 4, but anything's possible, I guess, is the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, if I loved him at 3, I wouldn't have a problem taking him there, but I wouldn't have a problem dropping him a little bit further down.
You have Antonio Brown, who's not going to be suspended, who's been the number 1 receiver in football for how many years now? Mr. Consistency. You could have him at the 103. No. At a position that historically does not have as many injury problems as the running back position does. To me, it's a slam dunk. I'm taking Antonio Brown. I don't want Ezekiel Elliott at the 103.
Yeah, and there's still always that possibility of a sophomore slump anyway. It's funny because with Elliott, other than this domestic thing, you can't think of a possibility as to why he would have the sophomore slump. This could be his Achilles heel. This could be it. So there's a distinct possibility that he plays 10 games because he gets hurt for a couple of them, or he's dinged up, misses a couple, and he has a couple of game suspension.
I think it was Fantasy Pros, and I'm going to butcher this guy's name, Mike Tagliere, I believe, had a little blurb posted about sophomore slumps in the NFL among running backs. And they're a real thing.
I know that.
And listen, we don't.
If he said it, now it's actually true.
The Cowboys have a very good offense, Dave. Great offensive line. Solid quarterback. Good coaching staff.
You don't have to worry about Romo's back anymore.
Right. Playing in a division that there should be some high-flying shootouts.
Sure.
We don't really have a rational reason why Ezekiel Elliott would suffer a sophomore slump. Just know that for whatever reason, there's a pretty good chance of it happening. So who knows?
He's done it, don't worry.
Yeah. Let's move on here and talk about Mike Gillislee. According to Mike Reese, Patriots beat writer, he says that Gillislee is the most likely back to fill the void left by LeGarrette Blount's departure. There's a ton of Patriots running backs, in that backfield right now, but Gillislee is going the highest of all of them. The 704 is currently where he is going in FFPC drafts. Dave, as you have been frustrated by Patriots running backs in the past, as you have seen the glory of 3 touchdowns and 150 yards one week, and then the following week 4 carries for 9 yards and no touchdowns, no catches. Is Gillislee the type of guy you would be investing in if you needed a running back in the early 7th round?
Oh, man, because of the inconsistency with the Patriots running game, I probably still wouldn't be. It's weird. I know Evan Silva, I think, likes him. Yeah. And I like Evan Silva a lot. I usually agree with him. But no, probably not. I probably would not be looking at him. Not that I wouldn't consider him, but if he fell to the 8th round, if he fell a little bit beyond, but I hear he's creeping into the 5th and 6th. I know 704 because of the PPR, tight ends. Yeah. 1.5 points PPR. A lot of times running backs fall a little bit. I think I'd still maybe hold off. Guys that are going after him: Jamal Charles, Frank Gore, Paul Perkins, Doug Martin, Samaje Perine, and then LeGarrette Blount. I've dogged Paul Perkins a lot, but Paul Perkins, he has a chance to be more of a feature back type player, and he catches passes. And Gore, Gore, you're not going to get 16 points a game out of Gore. You're not going to get 9 points a game out of Gore. You're going to get 12 every single week out of Gore every week. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just put it in your scorecard. I would rather have Gillislee than Jamal Charles. Yeah, I'm a little worried about Charles still. I'm a lot worried about Jamal Charles. You're pretty much just taking a shot with Charles, and that's fine. Yeah. Doug Martin, I know he's suspended the first 4 games, and he's actually going, I say he's going after Gillislee. Well, it's like a round later than Gillislee. I would take Doug Martin. I almost would rather have Martin than Gillislee. I for sure would. Even though I know he's going to be out all of September. Yeah, but he's the guy they've been, like you said, they've been talking him up like crazy. They did not add anybody worthwhile. Jeremy McNichols, but he was a 4th round pick, and he's not going to do anything. It's just pretty much Sims, right? Is there anybody I'm missing? There's a lot of people that I've talked to. There's another running back that. Go ahead. No, there's a lot of people that I've talked to, high stakes players, so that they like the pairing of getting Doug Martin in the 8th round, and then coupling him with Jacquizz Rodgers in the 14th or 15th. So Rodgers, they're saying Rodgers is so that's what he. That's what we're surmising. there's not a whole lot of information out right now, but that's. He got a ton of touches last year when Martin. And Jacquizz Rodgers did look good in those 2 starts. Yeah. Well, we'll figure out more with that Tampa Bay running back situation as we move forward here. Training camps, by the way, Dave, start in 12 days. I don't know if you saw the FFPC. I did see the emails. 12 days away. Well written. Thank you. A.J. Green said he wouldn't mind seeing fewer targets this season if it means the other receivers are contributing and the team is winning. John Ross, number 9 overall pick, will be on this offense this year. Joe Mixon, going to be a pass catcher out of the backfield. Still have Giovanni Bernard, still have Tyler Eifert. So Gio's going to be pupped, isn't he? There's no, I don't know if he's going to be pupped, but he probably will miss at least the first month of the season. There's no shortage. You can see all the additions that Cincinnati made with their skill position players this year. You've never been a big A.J. Green guy to begin with. I don't think. You always seem to poo-poo him he's going to get hurt. I've had him in some spots. I don't hate him. I know you don't hate him, but I've never gone crazy over him. But you don't take him once in a while. Yeah. I had him, I think, in a couple teams last year. So you look at A.J. Green right now, Dave, and the fact that he's saying I don't mind seeing fewer targets if the future of the team is if they're contributing and everything. So you look at A.J. Green going right now, he's at the 110 in drafts. I think I would rather have him. There's Jordy Nelson. I'm just really worried about this year. I feel like he's the type of guy that could just fall off a cliff at that age. They bring in Martellus Bennett. Devontae Adams takes a step forward. I'm not worried about Martellus Bennett at all. I know you're not. Packers don't throw to tight ends.
Okay, well, do you know Jermichael Finley in that big year with Rodgers? You know he had more than 60 catches.
Yeah, he still probably only had 90 targets.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you can't say they don't throw to tight ends when Finley's bringing down 60 balls.
They don't heavily. 60 is really not that impressive.
In today's day and age, it's not that. I mean, like, if you look at how many catches do you think Bouncing at? I don't know. I feel like we already put a 5 on this.
Did we?
Well, I feel like we did. It might have been like he finishes as a top 10 fantasy tight end or something like that.
All right, fine.
But I mean, more than 50 for sure. I just. I mean, I see good things. Anyway, so A.J. Green.
I normally don't take Jordy. I might actually take Jordy.
Going at the one. So would you rather have Jordy Nelson over A.J. Green?
Yeah, I would actually.
Okay. What about Michael Thomas or A.J. Green?
I'll still take A.J. Green.
And A.J. Green or T.Y. Hilton?
I'll take A.J. Green because until Andrew Luck actually throws a pass this offseason, I'm not taking Andrew Luck or T.Y. Hilton.
A.J. Green or your favorite, Julio Jones?
Well, I'll take Julio all day long.
Really?
Yeah.
Like you just always – this is a guy that you've always SHIT on over and over again because he's always hurt. He lets you down in playoff time, and
he's still pretty awesome. He's still Julio, baby.
All right.
I would – I know I say this about Julio, but that's talking about like the top 3-4 picks. Julio's there at pick I'm taking.
I understand. This guy I've seen slip a little bit. This is the last one I'm asking you about. This is a guy that was normally going at like the 4 or 5. Now I'm seeing him go at the 7, 8, sometimes 9. Mike Evans or A.J. Green.
It's funny. The reason I just read the article about Mike Evans and how he the last 8 weeks of the season, how he had so many poor finishes.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I guess I'll still take Evans, but I believe in Evans. I like Evans.
All right, moving on. We do have Steve Rizas coming up in just a couple minutes here. Before we get to that, you know what? We have a Martellus Bennett thing. Let's just blow past that. Evan Ingram. Let's talk about Evan Ingram. According to Lance Meadow of Giants. John Schmielk and Lance Meadow of Giants.com.
Schmielk.
Evan Ingram could finish the season with 45 to 50 catches. Does that at all surprise you, Dave? 45 or 50 catches for a rookie tight end who's going in the 14th round of FFPC drafts right now? Something's off. Either that's inaccurate or he should be drafted much higher.
These guys are both wrong. They're incorrect.
So Ingram is not going to catch 45 to 50 balls this year?
No, he will not. Brandon Marshall, Odell Beckham, Sterling Shepard, Perkins.
Paul Perkins.
And
it's bad when you're trumpeting Paul Perkins.
Yeah, he's a rookie tight end. I mean, 45 to 50 catches? Come on. And so then look at this. Like, then the little blurb here is like, I mean, I could have said this exact thing, but go ahead and say it.
What?
Well, I mean, rookie tight ends rarely reach this type of production, Balky.
Yeah.
Since 1996, only 3 rookies at the position have been top 5 fantasy producers. I'd like to know how many catch more than 50 passes. I bet I could find that out in one of those.
You probably could.
What's that? What football guys have it on the other little stat figure outer?
That's what they call it. The FPG stat figure outer.
I'll try and figure that out.
Last thing I want to bring up before we get to our first break. Kyle Odegaard from azcardinals.com says that Carson Palmer is still invested in playing football. Palmer did reveal in a recent interview he's not going to make any retirement decision until after this year. Dave, we've done this retirement dance with Carson Palmer before. Does the fact that he might be thinking about hanging it up after this season, is there any worry about drafting John Brown, J.J. Nelson, Larry Fitzgerald, any concern with drafting those guys specifically due to Carson Palmer maybe hanging it up?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, he's going to retire after this year.
And then what? What do you do for Dynasty if you own those Arizona? I mean, they didn't draft anybody this year.
They'll find somebody.
Okay.
They're a pretty good organization. They're not as dumb as a lot of the other ones.
Exactly. And we are not as dumb as a lot of the other podcasts out there because we are going to bring up somebody who actually does know what he's talking about.
We're a non-award-winning podcast.
Non-award-winning.
Yep.
For right now. Steve Rizas, former Football Guys Players Championship League title winner and Pros vs. Joes participant in 2017, joins us right on the other side of the break. I'm Eric Balkman. He's Dave Gerzak right here on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. This is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Welcome back to the HSFF Hour, ladies and gentlemen. I am Eric Balkman. My co-host is Dave Gerzak, and I want to Introduce tonight's guest right now. He started playing high-stakes contests back in 2007 in the WCOF when he bought a team with college friends, his brother, and a college professor at the time. He stumbled upon the FFPC and started playing in 2013. Now makes the trip out to Vegas every single year for the FFPC. Has gone from one team in the main event to a couple of teams to 3 teams, and he's won more than $10,000 since he began and was the 2016 FFPC main event toilet bowl winner. He's going to be drafting in the Pros vs. Joes contest, the last draft we have, draft number 6 on August 1st. Please welcome into the show Steve Rizas. Steve, thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight, man.
Hey, Balky, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
We're excited to have you on, a guy who has already won a title in the mid-stakes competition, a guy who has done very well in the main event, and now a guy who, you never know, maybe you'll be winning a main event team in the Pros vs. Joes competition this year as well. It's all for the taking, Steve. Let's talk before we get to fantasy football. Tell the listeners what you do for a living.
Well, I work for a public accounting firm in Western Massachusetts. So we basically do some advisory, tax, and bookkeeping services for individuals and businesses. I've been doing that right out of college all along. So I'm an accountant during the day, and my brother and I have been season ticket holders for the Patriots since 2013. So it's usually some sort of fantasy football or football when not doing the day job during football season.
How nice is that? Dude, how great is that?
That is pretty awesome. I'm just kind of curious, Steve, as long as you know you're a Patriots fan, there's a lot of people out there that are saying the Patriots, they might have a good team this year. Obviously coming off the Super Bowl victory, and I think that they might have what it takes. They got a quarterback there that I think has done all right over the past few years. New England seems like this could be their year, and God bless them, because it looks like they really haven't had much success over the last 15 years in the NFL. But hopefully 2017 is where you guys turn it around, huh?
Yeah, we've definitely been spoiled. It took us until 2013 to get the season tickets because my brother and I applied in the last year of the old Foxborough Stadium, which I don't know if you've ever been there. It was a complete dump. And that was also the year that they got good. They beat Oakland in that playoff game and made the run to the Super Bowl the first time. So because of that, we were on the wait list for a good 10, 11 years before we got our tickets. But can't really complain. We're spoiled rotten here. I mean, I remember when the Red Sox sucked, the Patriots sucked, everybody sucked.
As long as we're talking about the Patriots, I am curious, since you have your finger on the pulse of the Super Bowl defending champs. A lot of offensive changes there this year. They bring in Brandon Cooks. They seem to really reload, and they're ready to go this year. What's been the vibe? What are you hearing from not only, Cooks, but, Gillislee and the skill position? What are they saying about the offense there? If we can, separate the hyperbole, are they for real? I mean, is this an offense that is going to be one of the best in the NFL? Is this going to rival what they had when, Welker and Moss were and Gronk and Hernandez were out there? How do you rate this offense coming into this season for fantasy purposes as what we've been accustomed to in New England?
As a whole, I would say it's probably going to be as good as it gets. They are just loaded from top to bottom. You look at the kind of weapons they have. You're going to have in any given situation in a game, you're going to have guys like Deion Lewis, Chris Hogan, Malcolm Mitchell sitting there on the sidelines watching Gronk, Brandon Cooks, Edelman, James White run their routes and move up and down the field. It's really an embarrassment of riches. I didn't even talk about the fact that they signed Rex Burkhead for big money, which means Belichick must see something in them. In terms of trying to pick apart the running backs for fantasy, I mean, that's always a disaster. And nobody can figure it out. Bill Belichick is like fantasy poison when it comes to stuff like that. I just from reading the different articles and listening to people talk around here, I don't know what it is, but something tells me that one of those 4 backs isn't going to make it to opening day with the team. And I kind of have a feeling there's absolutely nothing to substantiate this, but if I had to put 5 on it, I don't know if I'm allowed to do that for gimmick infringement, but if I had to put 5 on it.
That's fine. Listen. I'm sorry, if I had to put 5 on who getting cut?
If I had to put 5 on it, I would probably put my money on Deion Lewis getting traded before the season started.
Interesting.
Yeah, they last year he didn't really look like he had the burst at the beginning part of the year. Belichick was really keeping him under wraps as he was coming back from that knee injury. But towards the end of the year, he looked a lot better, even though he was having limited snaps. But when you look at all the people they have in that backfield between Burkhead and James White and Gillislee, and they gave Burkhead a lot of money, they gave Gillislee a lot of money, and you saw what James White did in the Super Bowl. I just don't think there's enough room there for enough touches, and I think you could see Belichick ship him off to get a pick back in return.
He's done that to some critical acclaim in the past. Could see it happening again.
Yeah. So, hey, Steve,
yeah.
I got a question about.
I was going to say, if Deion Lewis gets traded somewhere else, he could become very fantasy relevant this year.
That's interesting.
So we had that question about Gillislee at the 704. Would you, given your statement about Patriots running backs, you would pass on him at the 704?
Yeah, I would tend, especially in the FFPC formats, if I'm going to take a Patriots running back, I'd probably say I want, obviously, Deion Lewis if he ends up getting traded, but if not, I'd probably trend more towards James White. They really like James White a lot. And, if you're going main event team, it's really hard for me to justify taking Gillislee there. If you're talking about pros versus Joes or, any type of a best ball format, you can definitely take your shot on your Patriots because, that helps mitigate the weeks where they're getting 2 touches for 5 yards or the weeks when they're going off and scoring 3 touchdowns for you.
All right, Steve, I have a question for you in a second, but I'm going to go back to our little tight end discussion, Balky.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so I did find this search. Sorry, football guys, but I found it on ProFootballReference.com.
Oh, he's lying. Football guy's on his screen right now.
Whatever. How many rookie tight ends with 50 or more catches since 1996?
I'll say 3.
5.
Wow.
And John Carlson,
John Carlson.
Cam Cleveland,
yeah.
Jermaine Gresham, Tim Wright, and the only one who actually finished with more than 55 was Jeremy Shockey with 74 catches.
I remember him.
894 yards and 2 touchdowns, actually. Very few touchdowns. I mean, look at this. If you actually went to a parameter of 55 or more, 1, Shockey, that's it.
No.
Or 56 or more. These guys are, those Raiders are morons.
Okay, well,
Steve, sorry to interrupt. We're going to extend your interview.
In their defense, they were saying that Engram could catch 45 to 50. So maybe 49, he wouldn't even end up on this
45.
list.
There was like 8 at 45.
Okay, well, there you go. See, that's
still not impressive. It's over 21 years, Balky.
Okay, all right. I'm with you.
All right, sorry.
That's all right. Keep going.
Steve, congrats on your success being a former main event league champ and winning the main event toilet bowl. It's actually winning the toilet bowl is tough, man. Because you got to beat all these other people.
I know.
About 500 people don't realize that they're even in it, so that's really good. But then there's people who actually care and they're trying hard. So, anyways, I think you should be proud of that. Philosophically, though, when you're drafting your teams, are you looking at the players that are playing during that 3-week championship sprint? Is that one of your big strategies?
I'll be honest, it doesn't really factor in all that significantly. If I'm looking at guys that are 1 or 2 slots close together, I'll look at the year-end schedule, and that'll be one of my tie-breaking factors. But from year to year, it's really hard to predict what defenses are going to be completely terrible in the league. You have your perennial bottom feeders like the Browns, the Jaguars, and teams like that, but there's a lot of turnover from year to year when you're trying to predict which defenses are going to be soft and which defenses aren't. I would probably consider that more with along the same amount as you would consider possible bad weather games if you got a team that's going to be playing in Buffalo 2 out of the 3 games or something like that towards the end of the year. But I would consider talent over the schedule for sure.
Talking with Steve Rizas, the 2016 main event toilet bowl champ, pros versus Joe's competitor this year, and of course a former Football Guys Players Championship League title winner. Steve, let's talk turkey here. A couple of running backs that are going right at the turn at the end of the first round are Devontae Freeman, Melvin Gordon. I don't know if you have a particular feeling on either one of them, but if you're picking one, and those are your 2 choices, which one of those guys are you drafting?
Well, it's going to be tough for me to say right now, not having seen what's going on, but my gut feelings tells me I'm going to go with Melvin Gordon this year. Obviously the injury risk is there, but I like the potential that he's got in that offense. He's going to have the volume in the run game for the carries. If you look at it last year, he got 80.7% of the Chargers' carries in the games that he was actually healthy. And then when you got into the red zone, he got 85% of the carries from the 5-yard line and in. And then when you add to the fact that there's no more Danny Woodhead there, so he's probably still going to get good production in the passing game, that offense has the potential to be dynamic if Keenan Allen can come back and do anything and, not break his leg in the first week again. They drafted Mike Williams. They retooled the offensive line, and I think that offense is kind of underrated when you consider what they could do. When you talk about it compared to the Falcons' offense, obviously the Falcons' offense, you saw what it did in the playoff run. But Gordon's going to get the volume. I think he'll be okay in the passing game as long as he can stay healthy. I'm a little concerned with Devonta Freeman from the standpoint of he was really efficient last year while he was losing touches with Tevin Coleman. If he's not as efficient this year and he loses more touches to Tevin Coleman, that could be a problem. I like both guys overall. I'm not saying I don't like Devonta Freeman. I still think he's an RB1, but if you're giving me those two guys to pick from, I think I'm going to go with Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, it's an offense on the rise, Dave, in Los Angeles. I almost said San Diego. That's going to happen throughout the season. But, yeah, Chargers are looking good.
Yep. I do like the Chargers. I don't really like Mike Williams, as you know.
I know, but the offense as a whole.
Yes.
And Gordon is the workhorse running back there.
He is. There's nobody else.
Yeah.
So
and they got Hunter Henry and the corpse of Antonio Gates there for one more year too.
That's true.
He's just collecting extra check. One last year of $9 million. That's fine. He'll be happy with that. So Steve, how does your typical off-season prep go? When do you start ramping up for the main event drafts?
Well, this year it's going to be a little bit earlier with the pros versus Joes, and I'm not mad about it. But usually I'll start looking at stuff more intensely at the beginning of August, late July when training camp opens up. I like to do you guys give the incentive for people who pay early to get their draft spot, usually that last Monday in July. So I usually do that so I know where I'm drafting out of. And that kind of kicks off the whole thing. And then early August, I sit down, kind of do a preliminary ranking based on some of the sites I trust. Like I use Draft Sharks. I love those guys. Those guys are awesome. I'll make the rankings. Yeah, I'll make the rankings based on, some of the sites I trust, what I've read, my own opinion. And then I'll probably update it every couple weeks, after the second preseason game, then after the third preseason game. And then probably before the opening week, I will sit down and do one final ranking, because I like to do it as we go along to see how guys are rising and falling based on what they're doing. And in between then, the month of August is kind of just information overload. I'm listening to any podcast I can get my hands on while I'm at work, reading articles, trying to catch some preseason games when I can, even though there's less and less going on until the second and third preseason games these days. But yeah, usually August is a really busy month for the prep, but this year it'll be a little bit earlier with the pros versus Joes.
What's interesting is the NFL Network always re-airs preseason games, and so when I'm commissioning drafts online, it's always helpful that I can. It's the only sport I will ever do this with. I don't DVR games. I either watch it or I'll read about it later. But with preseason games in the NFL, I will actually, if they're having a replay of one at 10 or 10:30 or whatever, I'll actually sit and watch that. Just because there is, so much more information to be gained when I'm actually sitting and watching it. Why are you looking at me like that? You seem very skeptical at this. This is what I do. It makes a lot of sense. It's saving time.
Well, how do you weigh that against, TV series where you Wikipedia and read the whole storyline of the whole series instead of watching it because you're like, oh, I don't think I'm going to probably end up watching it. And it turns out to be a great series.
Steve Rizas is our guest tonight on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Going to blow right past that, Dave. Steve, the
counselor, he refused to answer the question.
Yeah, I do. I plead the fifth. Des Bryant and Amari Cooper are both going right at the 208 in Football Guys drafts right now. For your money, would you rather have the older player with a more proven track record in Des Bryant, or would you rather have the younger guy who has more potential, but it's kind of fizzled out at the end of each of the last two seasons? Where do you stand on Des Bryant versus Amari Cooper?
Man, in this case, and this is more of a gut feeling, just me thinking, I really think this is the year that Amari Cooper puts it together and has his breakout and doesn't fall off the cliff. From everything that I've been looking at, that offense obviously was pretty dynamic last year. They add Marshawn Lynch into the fold. I think that he's going to improve on his red zone usage. He only had 13 red zone targets last year, and he didn't catch any of them. That's bound to improve. I think the overall target share with him and Michael Crabtree is going to even out a little bit. People forget that Michael Crabtree led the league with 9 drops last year. How many of those end up going back to Amari Cooper? if they decide to even things out a little bit. You have the off-season reports where people are talking about he's really showing the drive and fire to, put it together for a breakout year this year. I just think that he's got a lot of room for growth, whereas Des Bryant, I'm a little worried about the running-heavy scheme in Dallas, and if Dak Prescott happens to have a little bit of regression on his end. And I'm not so much worried about the injury factor with Des, even though he's been injured the last 2 years. But I just think that there's a little more room for Amari Cooper to improve and bust out. And I feel a little bit better about that versus Des Bryant, not falling back a little bit more this year. So it's a bit of a gut feeling, more of a heart versus head type thing, but I would go with Amari Cooper.
I think it's, it's interesting that I really haven't read a whole lot of positive stuff from analysts, fantasy football analysts, about Des Bryant so far this season. I've read a lot of stuff of stay away from Des Bryant, don't draft Des Bryant in the second round. I haven't heard anybody saying get on board with Des. So I guess I'm actually a little bit surprised he's still going at that mid-second, late second round price tag.
I kind of like those this year.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so this is the first I'm hearing of it.
Yeah, I do.
So Steve brought up a lot of compelling arguments.
Even though Des is never used in the slot ever like he should be, because he'd have like 20 more catches.
So why? Okay, so knowing that, why are you kind of on Des? Is it because everybody else is pushing him down?
Yeah, I think he's cheap. For once, he's not being, you don't have to pay full first-round price for Des Bryant.
That's true.
He's super talented.
Yeah.
I think Prescott, he's a second-year player. Quarterbacks usually take a good leap in their second year, and I think it's their fourth year.
I don't know.
Whatever. There's some stupid stat for that. I can't see Prescott being, less effective. Mm-hmm. And if you do have that suspension looming for Elliott, that could be a few games where Des is going to get a few more targets. And
that's what I was going to touch on.
Having said that, though, I don't dislike Cooper. I like Cooper too. I think he's super talented. I think he'll do well. I think he'll do well as well.
The fact that we were talking about this potential sophomore slump with Elliott, well, that could benefit the passing game if he can't put it together, and if it's going to benefit the passing game, it's going to benefit Des Bryant.
Absolutely.
So that does make some sense. On that level, it's just interesting. I thought I would see more stuff about Des Bryant in a positive light. He's a little bit
flying under the radar.
He is. He kind of is. Do you have
rightfully so, or maybe not?
Or undeservedly so. Do you have a question here for Steve, Dave?
I do. So you're in the final Pros versus Joe's draft of the year. You're drafting the Better Call Saul division, the spot between Draft Sharks, Matt.
Yeah,
so
this is interesting. Yeah.
And the guy who is the leader of this, Darren Armani. Which, by the way, Darren Armani is so nice.
Yeah.
He draws these draft spots. He never gives himself a number one.
Well, he's not drawing himself at number one, so.
Well, he could probably fix it up if he wanted to do it, but he doesn't do that. And I bet you I can guarantee you there's been a time where he's gotten a number one pick and he's probably fixed it so he didn't get it.
Right. Well, that could be.
Anyway, so more importantly, since you use Draft Sharks information,
yeah.
What are you going to do with Matt Schauf? Are you going to snipe some picks from him? Are you going to take their sleepers? And you're going to, what are you going to do with all these guys that
get
they love so much?
Schauf on tilt early in the draft? We'd love to broadcast something like that. That'd be great.
Does he get tilted?
Schauf? Oh,
is he emotional?
Yeah.
Does he have emotion?
The thing is, he's co-hosted this show with me on numerous occasions before when you've been gone, and he is a very entertaining guy.
I'm sure he is.
He and I were Scott Fishbowl partners last year.
You can answer the question in about 10 minutes.
He was unflappable in that. Just never seemed to bother him. But I feel like in this type of contest, maybe Steve, you could put him on tilt. Who are you looking at in the first round at that spot, and what's it going to be like going up drafting against a guy whose projections and website and advice that you've used so much in the past and enjoy?
Well, it's funny because I actually emailed him earlier this morning to let him know that I was going on the show tonight and I was going to be drafting directly behind him, and I used the content, and he wasted no time talking trash, saying that he hopes I don't get my feelings hurt when he keeps taking all the guys I want. So it's going to be...
Let me ask you a question.
It's going to be hard to get one over on him, but
Steve,
if I can definitely put him on tilt, that'll at least give me a little bit of enjoyment.
Is he aware of how serpentine drafts work, where he drafts before you with one pick, and then coming back around, you draft ahead of him with the next one?
Yeah, I'm going to have to remind him of that. I actually think I'm going to email those guys too and ask them to send me the projections broken out on each guy. And then, that way at least every other pick I can take the guy that he had ranked higher than the rest of the guys, break it out so that I get it before them every other pick at the very worst. But with the 5 spot, if the 4 that most people think are going to go 1 through 4 off the board in terms of Antonio Brown, Zeke Elliott, David Johnson, and Le'Veon Bell, at this point I have it between Julio Jones and Mike Evans. I'm giving some outside consideration to OBJ because in the Draft Masters format, it really helps mitigate his crazy inconsistency that he had last year, where some games, he would win you a week single-handedly. Some weeks it was like you were playing short-handed. And I really think that format helps out with Julio Jones, too, because I had him on one of my teams last year. I think it was the team that ended up winning the Toilet Bowl, actually. And part of the reason I was in the Toilet Bowl was because Julio Jones was playing, 2 quarters of football at a time, and, in a weekly format, that really does kill you. But in the Draft Masters format, you can mitigate that a little bit. And I know you guys were talking about Mike Evans a little bit before and, him dropping, but I still really like Mike Evans. I think he's in for big things this year, with that offense adding Deshaun Jackson and having O.J. Howard. And I still think that offense is on the rise, and Mike Evans is going to have plenty of activity going his way to be worthy of possibly the number 5 pick.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on Mike Evans. We have to take a quick break here, but when we come back, more with Steve Rizas, more Pros vs. Joe's preview, more talk on. We'll actually talk about some 8th round tight ends. We'll have a face-off with that. I'm Eric Balkman. He's Dave Gerzak. This is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. You are listening live or on tape to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak talking with Steve Rizas, a former Football Guys Players Championship League title winner, Pros vs. Joe's participant this year, a 2016 FFPC main event Toilet Bowl winner, and, oh man, Jesus Aguilar just got a hold of one. This might be a grand slam.
No one cares.
It's a grand slam. That's awesome. All right, sorry.
Was this the stupid Brewers?
They got the Brewers game on. That's been fantastic.
No one cares about baseball.
Full count, 2 outs. That was great. Steve, listen, let's talk a little bit about
multitasking.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about tight ends here because the 8th round is sort of, I don't want to say it's like desperation time if you don't have a tight end in the FFPC format, but it is kind of desperation time.
You've already lost.
You're looking at 2 of the guys that are consistently going in the mid-8th round this year are 2 very, very different players. Eric Ebron and Jack Doyle are both going there. Ebron, who was the 10th overall pick in the NFL draft 3 or 4 years ago, I can't remember which one it was now, but always seems to underachieve. Is this the year for him? And then Jack Doyle, a guy who came out of nowhere.
Didn't even make his high school varsity team.
Didn't make his high school. Is that official? They didn't make his high school varsity team?
No, I'm just making it up. I mean, he's got this generic name.
He may or may not have made his high school varsity
team. Farm
in
Oklahoma.
Potentially. It might have been an auto dealership in Virginia. We don't know.
He walked on a Division III school.
Yeah.
Eventually made it to the NFL.
And now he's getting passes thrown from, we think, Andrew Luck.
He did go to Western Kentucky.
Oh, there you go.
Division III school.
Hilltopper. No, it's D1. So anyway, you're looking.
Still crappy.
It's
a crappy school.
You're looking at Ebron or Doyle there in the 8th round. If you are going tight end, maybe you're backing up your tight end that you already drafted, or maybe you are looking at a starter there. Which one of those guys do you like better this season?
I think that Eric Ebron is going to end up having the better season. That Indy offense, the tight end position itself concerns me a little bit from the standpoint of, as the Dizzle kind of mentioned earlier, until Andrew Luck throws a pass, he's not going to feel good about what's going on there. And, he has gotten banged up the last couple of years. And if, he gets injured, forget about it. That offense is going to take a big-time hit. And I'm also a big fan of Eric Swope in the later rounds. I think that Doyle might open the year as the starting tight end, but the organization itself is pretty high on Eric Swope, and he's going to kind of have to hold him off the entire year. And, kind of reiterating what you guys were talking about, where you don't even know if he made his JV, high school, varsity team or whatever. It's just a guy living the dream. But if you have a talented guy in back of him pushing him all year, it's going to be hard for him to hold him off. This isn't a magical story like Hoosiers.
I kind of wish we had Farrell on right now as well, because Doyle got a 3 years, $19 million deal, half of it guaranteed. Farrell, you live in that area. Where the hell were you in Western Kentucky when Doyle was sitting out there with his mommy looking for an agent?
Maybe Farrell only scouted players who played varsity high school football And the fact is that
So
if Doyle was just sitting in the stands, maybe he was sitting in the stands next to Farrell. Farrell's like, you're a pretty big boy. Why aren't you out there? You should be out there catching passes.
How tall are you? 6'6"?
Yeah. Oh, listen, we got to talk later. I think I have a very exciting opportunity to discuss with you. But anyway,
Farrell also knows Jennifer Lawrence, the actress.
Yeah, friends with her.
Didn't become
Oscar award-winning
Didn't
actress.
become her agent either.
Yeah, well.
Anyway, Farrell, we love you.
Yeah, we do love you.
So
and he'll actually be on the show next week
good.
For the Farrell Barrel segment.
Steve, okay, so Pros versus Joes, 28 rounds, draft experts. Half the league are made up of industry analysts pretending to be really good at drafting, and half of them are made of studs like yourself. So how are you going to modify your strategy to make up for these guys who draft quarterbacks too early, don't know that the tight ends matter?
Oh,
these guys are going to screw up. These guys, it's going to be like an infection of rookies in this draft. So what are you going to do?
Well, this is going to be my first Draft Masters contest, so I'm pretty excited about it. But, just looking from afar, I always listen to the podcast when you guys broadcast the Pros vs. Joes as they're happening nightly the last few years, and it's really fun to see how it all plays out. I'm not going to make any major changes in my draft philosophy, but, with the 28 rounds and not having ad drops during the year and being able to just set it and forget it, obviously you're going to have your common sense stuff of don't just draft one kicker and one defense. Normally in a league, I'll try and save 3 spots for my kicker and my defense, so if I got 2 of one and 1 of the other, because you can always play matchups during the year if need be, but you don't want to go into a week where you're taking a 0 even for a defense in a best ball format. The other thing is, it really opens it up for, like I talked about, weekly boom or bust players that you might be nervous about trying to peg the week they're going to go off in a weekly lineup. You can really just kind of let it fly with those guys in the best ball format. Guys like Julio Jones, OBJ, Amari Cooper, who was a monster first half last year, and then second half kind of just fell off a cliff. I had the unfortunate tragedy of having to deal with Mark Ingram last year, and on a weekly basis, that was just a disaster, at least in the Draft Masters. The couple weeks where Sean Payton, did something that seemed semi-logical, you could actually get credit for it. And, in the best ball format, I would actually think about taking Patriots players not named Tom Brady. Brandon Cooks you could actually look at, one of those running backs we were talking about before, whereas in the main event format, good luck trying to predict it on a week-to-week basis.
That is the good part of this form. I'm sure the pros appreciate it, where they're just like, I'll just draft this here, and then I don't have to worry about it the rest of the season because these Joes are going to kick my ass. I don't want to be reminded of how bad my draft was.
Yeah, they just want to drive off in their Toyota Corolla, living the dream.
You don't have to get into this aspect of it. Good stuff there, Steve. I want to talk to you again about the meat and potatoes of the decisions that you won't have to necessarily be making if ADP holds up for this particular draft.
Just kidding, pros.
But maybe if you are drafting, if you have one of those double-digit picks in the first round for the main event, this is a decision you'll have to make, because at the end of the third round, beginning in the fourth round, there's a compelling decision between 3 receivers there that are all popping off right around the same time, and they are Keenan Allen, Alshon Jeffrey, and Allen Robinson. Now, if you are going to go and soak one of those draft picks into the receiver position, you're looking at one of those 3 guys. Which one is your pick most likely to be between Allen, Jeffrey, and Robinson?
Well, I'm going to put Allen Robinson last because, for better or worse, Blake Bortles terrifies me. I just simply cannot trust him. He was beyond deplorable last year. If a Jaguars fan is listening, I don't know if those exist. They probably know what I'm talking about.
They agree.
I can't put my faith in Blake Bortles to even become more efficient than he was last year, because they're going to be running the ball more, so you're not going to have as much target share there. And Blake Bortles is going to have to be more efficient just for Robinson to come close to his levels from 2 years ago, and I'm just not a big believer of that. I would actually go with Alshon Jeffrey. The soft tissue injuries kind of scare me. The fact that, he's been pretty disappointing throughout his whole career for fantasy purposes. Pretty much every year you've expected more out of him and you haven't gotten it. But I do like the fact he's on the 1-year prove-it deal. I think that he's going to be in line for a lot of red zone usage in Philly. I'm not worried about Jordan Matthews in the red zone there. I'm not worried about Torrey Smith in the red zone there. I think he's going to be a guy in the red zone, and he, physically, He's very gifted. It's just a matter of putting it all together. I like the fact that Carson Wentz is going to be in his second year. Kind of like what you guys were talking about in the second year. It's normally quarterbacks don't fall off, and if they do, it's slight, but usually they make improvements. If Carson Wentz makes an improvement, that's going to bode well for Alshon Jeffrey. He's got the motivation with the one-year deal. And, I just think that he's going to be the guy. He's got the room for it. And as dynamic as I said the Chargers offense has the potential to be in I'm sorry, I just almost said San Diego. It's L.A. He's going to be competing for his targets with, the rest of the guys there. He's dealing with a very serious injury that he's trying to come back from. I just don't see the target upside there. I don't know what kind of usage he's going to get in the red zone with the way their offensive landscape is now. I do like him. I would take him if Alshon was off the board, for instance. But I wouldn't take him over Alshon in that instance. So I'd have to go with Alshon Jeffrey. I think this year is the year where, on the prove it deal, he actually gives some value to his fantasy owners.
Yeah, and Matt Schauf, by the way, big Eagles fan. I'm sure he'll be all over Alshon Jeffrey this year too. If
right in front of you.
Right. Well, I mean, again, these guys are probably not going to be selected in the mid-third. I mean, you could probably reach and get Jeffrey there, and it wouldn't be a bad pick. But there'd be certainly some other guys out there.
Well, he better take him in the third, otherwise he's going to be in trouble now.
Now there you go. Absolutely, he knows. Dave, final question for Steve.
You should tell him that you heard that Bortles hasn't been out at any of the clubs or anything. That A-Rob's the guy.
And his hair's growing back.
Is it really?
Oh, I'm just saying. Just say that. He's found the fountain of youth.
He's taking that Asian stuff that they had on Seinfeld.
Yeah, the cream, the stinky cream. Yeah, exactly.
All right, Steve, we're looking for an early round guy that you think you'll be avoiding this year and a sleeper being drafted in double-digit rounds that you'll be trying to acquire.
All right, for the guys that I'm probably going to avoid, I'm going to give you two names. DeMarco Murray is one of them. I'm very concerned about the workload issues. He had 878 carries over the last 3 years, which in hindsight for the modern fantasy football landscape is pretty ridiculous. You're talking about Derrick Henry. No matter how you feel about him, they got him more involved last year. If that continues this year, it's going to be a problem for Murray. And then you're also talking about the fact that they have more passing weapons in Tennessee, and they might be looking to Mariota to, I'm not going to say go fun and gun, but at least air it out a little bit more. When you take all those factors into account, it's going to be hard for Murray to come close to what he was doing last year. The second guy, and it pains me to say this, is Gronk. I just can't trust him in the first round. You don't know how Belichick's going to handle him. You might not even see him play a snap in the preseason. You're always dealing with, when he's out there, he's a freak, but, he just hasn't been able to stay healthy other than a year or two. And when you're spending a first-round pick, which I think is what it takes pretty much now to get him, you want to have a guy that you can at least feel a little bit more confident in for staying healthy. If he fell to the second round, I would take him, but where he's going now in first, it's kind of hard for me to justify. And then for the guy that I'm looking to target right now in the double-digit rounds, I'm going to go with Kareem Hunt. I think he's going to move up the board as training camp goes on and as the summer goes on, but the Chiefs gave up a lot to move up 18 spots to get him in the draft. And I think that, you might hear Andy Reid talking up how he's a fan of Spencer Ware, but I really do think that the fumbles, bothered him a lot during the season. Spencer Ware isn't all that dynamic of a talent. He's not a game-changing guy like a Le'Veon Bell or anything like that. So I definitely think that the opportunity is there for Kareem Hunt to take that job. He might not start the year as the guy, but I think he's going to end the year as the guy. And for where he's going right now, I think that's going to be a pretty good value.
Yeah, the 10.02 right now for Kareem Hunt in drafts is certainly going behind. I believe he's still going behind. I should have looked it up. I believe he still is going behind Spencer Ware. Oh, yeah, Spencer Ware, way up there at the 4.12. So Kareem Hunt, certainly a good value for a guy who could be the starting running back for the Chiefs the majority of the season. A good value of a podcast guest tonight. We did another home run on this show. Steve Rizas, thank you so much for coming on. I really want to wish you the best of luck at the Pros vs. Joes. Kick the crap out of Matt Schauf. We'd all love to see that. Best of luck to you in the main event this year as well. And I really appreciate you making some time to come on the show tonight.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate it, guys. Take care.
Hey, Steve.
Steve Rizas, the 2016 FFPC Main Event Toilet Bowl champ, Football Guys Players Championship League winner, and Pros vs. Joe's competitor, picking out of the 5 spot, August 1st in the Better Call Saul division, right between Matt Schauf and Darren Armani. We'll have that for you live, along with all the Pros vs. Joe's drafts once again this year. Those are starting up very soon. I usually say, it's almost football season, Dave. It's been football season for quite a while at the FFPC. Listen, we have to get to a break right now. When we come back, we have plenty of emails to answer. We're going to fly through as many of them as we can get to. This is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour right here on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. I am Eric Balkman. He is the Dizzle, Dave Gerzak, on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Thanks so much for listening. Yes, Dave, you have a...
Did you notice that Steve's, he said Dizzle?
Yes, Steve Rizas, the guest we just had right before the break.
He called me Dizzle.
Fantastic guest.
He
did
Dizzle.
call you the Dizzle.
I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, well, listen,
it's... And use some David A. crap like you were saying earlier.
If the shoe fits, Dave, if the shoe fits.
Didn't say the fizzle or anything.
First email tonight. Let's crack through these. We should be able to get to most of them. Joe in Butler, Pennsylvania. Could the obvious answer at running back in San Francisco this year just be no one? Joe Williams is a rookie and not a pedigreed one at that. And Carlos Hyde may have been the man in the past, but he has not been praised by the front office or the coaching staff at any point this offseason. For a team that is supposed to struggle, introducing a new offense, a 50-50 timeshare between the two seems the most likely scenario no one is talking about. That is Joe in Butler, Pennsylvania. Carlos Hyde, Dave, is going at the 502 right now. Joe Williams all the way down at the 1311. So there is a massive difference in ADP between them right now. I don't think I could get away from Joe Williams in the 13th, but I can easily ignore Carlos Hyde in the 5th.
Yeah, I could too. I mean, having said that, if Carlos Hyde falls to the mid to late 6th, why not take Hyde in that spot? Because there's a chance he could be great, right? Or at least decent, even if they're not going to score a ton of touchdowns. And then with that discount, you take Joe Williams in the 12th round. And you can just – I know, there's just been this whole thing, by the way. Let me just give a little rant about this. Mm-hmm. But don't take handcuffs. Oh, handcuffs are the worst, blah, blah, blah. It's like this trendy thing to say don't take handcuffs. That's fine. This isn't taking handcuffs. This is taking a situation where you don't really know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. You just take them both and just now you own that team. Unless somebody else, if Matt Breida or whatever, takes over, I doubt that's going to happen. No. You likely have the top 2 guys on the team, and that's pretty cheap to acquire. Even for not a team that's going to score a ton of points, you're still going to get some fantasy points out of it. But an offense, granted, is a new one that will be being installed in San Francisco. Their defense will suck. They're going to have to be throwing a lot.
Kyle Shanahan has made some pretty good running backs in his offensive coordinator days in the NFL, so this could be a case where he does more of the same. Now, if you look at what the guys who are going around Carlos Hyde, the aforementioned Spencer Ware going right after him in drafts right now. I think between those two, I'd rather have Hyde. And then you get into the Dalvin Cooks, Mark Ingrams of the world. Then you have Bilal Powell and C.J. Anderson. I think I might look at those guys as guys better than Carlos Hyde. And then you get into Woodhead, Eddie Lacy, Amir Abdullah area. But, no, I mean...
There's a lot of good running backs that are late. I mean, you still didn't even mention Doug Martin, who's way later.
He's way later. The other thing, too, regarding the handcuff comment that you made, I think that if you look in the advice that industry analysts and other high-stakes players will give you, they don't necessarily say don't take handcuffs. I think the advice is don't target or, sacrifice value to take your handcuff. I see high-stakes players all the time in these football guys drafts. They'll pound a couple of elite running backs early, get a good stable of receivers early, grab maybe a tight end, or maybe they wait on tight end. But then 9th, 10th, 11th round hits, boom, they're hitting all these, handcuff running backs in that area, guys that aren't necessarily, just to give you some examples here. You have Kenneth Dixon in the 11th round, James White in the 10th round, Terrence West in the 11th round. Jonathan Stewart in the 11th round, Giovanni Bernard in the 11th round, guys like Kamara, Jeremy Hill, Jonathan Williams, guys that aren't necessarily going to have a big-time role to start off the season.
Have the same role.
Well,
that's
what I think Marvin Lewis said that. So Roto Blurb, that's the website.
Actually, you thank them every week. Sorry, it's Roto World.
But you don't have to necessarily get your guy. Just get some guys. Maybe that'll be my new credo this year. Don't get your guys. Get some guys. Just don't get skipped. Make sure that you're making a pick.
Just be better than the Vikings.
Every time you're on the clock, make sure you say somebody's name. Like that'll be my fantasy advice for 2017.
That's the number one way to success right there.
Paul in Davenport, Illinois. Hi, Balky and Dave. How much upside does Will Fuller truly have this year in Houston? Have a great weekend. Thanks for the email, Paul in Davenport, Illinois. Well, I'm not too excited about Will Fuller this year, and neither are FFPC drafters, not selecting him on average until the 9th pick of the 15th round. Tough for me to get excited about any other pass catcher in that offense not named DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, the quarterback situation is not great, and Fuller's a deep threat. And he had a couple good games early on and fooled a lot of people.
Yeah.
By the way, if Ron Meyer had taken a couple of trade offers I made to him, he'd be really happy right now, but foolishly he declined.
Because he
kept Will Fuller.
Could have gotten rid of Will Fuller.
Yeah, you could have dumped him.
For what? What
was
the?
I don't know. It was.
Well, maybe it was crap. I mean, maybe
no,
it was.
It wasn't. It was a player like a Keenan Allen type player for like Will Fuller and Corey Coleman.
What?
Seriously, it was something like it was a legitimately good trade.
Interesting.
Trust me. If looking back, he should look at some of those declines, and he'll be crying himself to sleep tonight over his wine.
The other thing that we should bring up regarding Will Fuller, he is, as Dave mentioned, a deep threat guy, and we know that Deshaun Watson's deep ball maybe leaves a little bit to be desired. A little bit of the word scattershot comes to mind when it comes to
once
that.
Once it gets there.
Yes, once it gets there. So I think that that's something to keep in mind regarding Will Fuller as well. And certainly in the 15th round, you're not sacrificing anything, but I will be finding somebody else at that spot. Bill in Reno, Nevada.
Patriots defense.
Yeah, the Browns defense. Dear Tony and Hunter, which one of the rookie tight ends do you think has the best chance at finishing in the top 10 at the position in the FFPC this season?
Who's Tony and Hunter?
I'm assuming, since he's asking about rookie tight ends, those had to be Hunter Henry and
Tony Gonzalez.
Tony Gonzalez, yeah.
Right.
So rookie tight ends. We touched on Evan Ingram. We could bring in O.J. Howard in the conversation, Gerald Everett. Who's the other big guy that got David Njoku? All these guys. Which one has the best shot of finishing in the top 10 at tight ends this year? Is it Howard?
Yeah.
Is it that simple? Even though he's splitting time with Cameron Brate and he has D-Jax and Mike Evans there?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's so. Well, you know what? It could be Njoku. In long term, I think I like Njoku the best. Long term, I like Njoku the best. From a dynasty perspective, I like Njoku the best.
Who's catching passes in Cleveland this year? Corey Coleman, who's once again battling a hamstring issue.
He's hurt all the time. I like the guy, but he's always hurt.
Kenny Britt, a guy who before last season we could have said the same thing about.
He's a journeyman.
And there's David Njoku, the pinnacle of health, a 20-year-old wunderkind.
Exactly, with a cool haircut. His haircut's awesome.
Only problem is the school he went to for college. That's really the only black eye on his player profile.
That's because you're a Florida State guy. The U is a football factory. The aforementioned Jeremy Shockey went to the U. He's the only player since 1996 to have over 56 catches as a rookie tight end. This might be the year that maybe Njoku keeps that Miami tradition going and ends up with 74 catches for 900 yards, 894 yards, and 3 touchdowns instead of 2 Balky.
A lot of great tight ends that have gone to the U. You have guys like Greg Olson, Jeremy Shockey, Kellen Winslow Jr., Clive Walford. Just the list goes on and on. David Njoku. Maybe he's the next guy.
Hey, where did Aaron Hernandez go again?
Florida. University of Florida.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, was this you were trying to set me up to say you went to Florida State?
No, to be truthful, I forgot where he's going.
Oh, okay.
But I'm watching. It's so sad. Hernandez was so great.
He was very good.
And in the pros. What a dumbass.
Let's talk about his team. This is another Patriots running back question, which we talked about earlier, but I want to get a little bit in depth here. This is Rich in Atlanta. How would you guys be drafting Patriots running backs this year? Is there one that stands out, or are you avoiding entirely? So, thanks for the email, Rich. For the 4 Patriots running backs that are currently being selected, Brandon Bolden's not being selected at all. There's 4 of them that are going in Football Guys drafts. We already said Gillislee at the 704. James White's going at the 1008. Deion Lewis at the 1509. Rex Burkhead goes at the 1702.
I agree with him, actually. I have no interest in Deion Lewis at all.
Okay. I think that you and I could safely eliminate Gillislee and Lewis as the best value then. Okay? Comes down to either White or Burkhead. Correct? Does for me anyway.
I actually think Burkhead, my opinion on Burkhead is that unless Gillislee, something happens to him, that he's going to just be a special teams type player.
Okay. So
I'm not that interested in Burkhead.
For you, the best value, despite him going 7 rounds ahead of Burkhead, is James White in the 10th.
James White, for sure.
I think
for me, for sure.
I think I'm with you on that because I feel like if I'm sinking a 17th round pick on Rex Burkhead, I'm probably not going. He's not long for my roster.
I mean, 17th isn't. I mean, it's cheap, but like you said.
But those cheap picks, those are the ones you always cut right away for the hot waiver wire
right away.
Yeah,
right away, absolutely.
So I don't think if I'm taking Burkhead unless he shows something in the first couple of weeks, he's going to be back in the player pool pretty quick.
News doesn't change or anything, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that's everything we do on this show is for that. Mike in Middleborough, Mass. Well, we're coming up on mid-July, so it's time to start talking about how great Ryan Tannehill and the Dolphins' offense is going to be this year, finally, and how this is finally the year he breaks out, and how Parker finally really understands the offense now, blah, blah, blah.
I love this. This is one of the best emails you've ever read.
That's Mike in Middleborough, Mass, and then he writes, P.S. Do you like any Dolphins this year? Seriously. So, okay.
I feel like Jeff Tirabassi wrote this email.
Now, is he a big Dolphins fan?
Yeah, he likes
okay. So I knew he always
one of the greatest high-stakes players that you'll never hear about.
I knew
under the radar, Jeff Tirabassi.
I've seen him wear some Dolphins gear before, and I know he drafted Lamar Miller and Devontae Parker a few times.
His Achilles heel is he likes to bet on them, even if it's not a good
okay.
Well, if they're a dog.
Okay. Well, anyway. So you look at the Dolphins this year, Dave. First of all, I am mostly what I've heard, coming out of Miami. I am not – my BS detector is slowly beeping. It's not a fast beep, but it is slowly beeping. I think the realist guy who could break out this year is Parker because we've pretty much already seen it from Ajayi, and I don't think I'm ever going to see anything from Ryan Tannehill that wows me from a fantasy perspective. Like, I don't think he's all of a sudden going to be a top 5 quarterback or maybe even a top 10 quarterback. I don't really care. I think the Julius Thomas stuff is nonsense. I don't really think that he's going to all of a sudden become a factor in Adam Gase's offense again. Jarvis Landry, I don't know if I read this stat that he actually the first 4 weeks of the season he put up really good numbers, but his numbers after that, like the majority of the season, were not great from Landry last year. So I think that he's a guy that I'm not too excited about drafting. What's your feel for the Dolphins' offense this year? I mean, is there anybody there that on that offense right now that you're going to be targeting?
There is one player. I actually am interested in Ajayi. I think I'm going to take him. I have to apologize to our listeners with Tannehill. I've been touting Tannehill for a number of years, and it's mainly due to the hot wife theory of Lauren Tannehill. And Lauren Tannehill is hot. I just Google image search. She's very good looking, very attractive. She's tan.
Hot wife theory, by the way, has a completely different connotation.
Very good. I mean, like Andy Dalton's got a very cute wife, and he shouldn't, right?
No.
Tannehill's a good looking guy. He should have a hot wife. But I mean, anyway, the point is, the hot wife only goes so far. You have to actually play well. You're not that good. He's not that good. I'm interested in Ajayi because Gase, I think, realizes the hot wife thing only goes so far as well.
Okay.
And he knows his quarterback is kind of sucky, and he's just going to hand the ball off quite a bit.
Apparently, Gase is pretty successful with the ladies. I'm not making this up. This is a legit thing. Like, he is like the hottie of NFL head coaching circles. And I don't think he's ugly, but I don't think he's like a dreamboat or anything.
Let's see.
Are you Googling? Okay. Yeah,
a couple of the pics. Yeah, he's
nothing great.
He looks a little bit nerdy. I mean, if he lets the hair grow out and puts the hat on,
can he let the hair grow out?
It's a little bit better. You know, the thing is, this is what's cool is
who has thicker hair, him or Blake Bortles, or me?
If you're out at the club, if you're Adam Gase, you're out at the club, right?
Yeah.
So what happens, right? And you're out. All these players are there. All these 6'4", 320-pound linemen, whether white guys, black guys, doesn't matter, whatever. These huge athletes are walking up to you and sweating you the whole night.
Yeah. So
you must be somebody really important. So that's why women are like, that guy, does he own the team?
I don't know.
He's like the main guy.
Yeah.
All these guys are coming up and talking to all these athletes.
If you're going out to the club with your coach, you're not sweating him. The rest of hey coach, you want a shot, or just like
they're coming up. They're
the guy that's going to be busting your ass in the morning.
When are you leaving, coach? When are you leaving? You heading out?
Yeah, I guess maybe that's what it is. Coach, we got to get to bed. Then they leave, and then they come back.
He's very charismatic. He's very motivational. I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay, so did you answer the Dolphins question? Nobody you're very excited about? Ajay?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's probably the guy I would look at.
I like Landry's okay, but I never get that excited because he's Mr. 9.9 yards.
Yeah, he doesn't really catch touchdowns. He's going at the 403 right now. You look at Devontae Adams is going behind Landry. I think I'd rather have Adams. Golden Tate. Who would you rather have, Jarvis Landry or Tyreek Hill?
Oh, Tyreek Hill,
yeah, there you go, and he's going after him too.
Tyreek Hill is my
Jarvis Landry or Larry Fitzgerald.
Fitz.
And Jarvis Landry or Terrell Pryor.
Oh man, that gets a little bit tougher. I might actually go Landry there. I might because that's pretty safe. I don't mind Pryor, but I like the safety.
That's fine. He's going like a full round after Landry.
Right.
Jarvis Landry or Martavis Bryant.
Oh, come on, Landry.
It's Bryant. Okay, let's move on. Oh, the other thing I want to say is because I think that Devontae Parker
just to interrupt you, a lot of high stakes players do like Bryant.
Yeah, I've noticed that too.
I'm getting a kind of a feel that some of these guys are into Bryant's.
We talked about that on when I was on the Player Profile, the Roto Underworld podcast with Matt Kelly, which was honestly like I love doing the show with you. That was a lot of fun. The best way.
Because he's a personable host.
The thing is,
if I had someone like him, he'd be so great.
If somebody
he's
asked
so
me,
personable.
Yeah. If somebody asked me, what's it like doing a podcast with Matt Kelly? I would say it's literally like talking to a cartoon for 2 hours. And I don't mean that. I don't mean that in a bad way. Yeah. He is just so over the top, and there's so many people that have emailed me and they Danny Mueller actually said you must have pictures of him because he didn't go ape on you like he normally does it. And Matt said that's his whole shtick is he has his player rankings, he has his player projections, and then he'll bring somebody on. He will ask them a question that sets himself up to destroy that person, and it does make for great radio, and people love it.
Kind of like the Tucker Carlson show, like on Fox, where he brings on a liberal guest, and he just like asking questions and then just destroys whatever they're saying. It's such a setup.
It's very entertaining. I mean, the podcast that and the one that we did together, I'm very proud of. I had a great time doing that. So check that out, rotounderworld.com.
He does a great job.
Yeah, it's fantastic stuff. So the other thing I was going to say about Devontae Parker, and by the way, Matt Kelly he's on Martavis Bryant this year too. The other thing I was going to say about Devontae Parker, because the hype started so early, I think it's actually fizzling a little bit. And now he's going in the early eighth. And I can kind of get behind that right now.
That's actually a great point. I mean, because everyone's like, oh, Parker, he didn't break out as a second-year guy, so he sucks. That's not necessarily the case. I mean, that eighth round is pretty cheap for him. I'm interested there.
Yeah.
At that price, I'm interested.
There you go. Gabe in Trufant, Michigan. Dear Spider-Man and Iron Man. Michael, by the way, are you going to see that movie this weekend?
No.
My wife really wants to go to it.
Superhero movies suck. You know what movie I want to see is that Baby Driver movie. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
That's rated like 8.6 on IMDb. It's like crazy high.
You know who did that? That's Edgar Wright, who is responsible.
The Simon Pegg movie.
Yeah. And my wife likes to go to movies on Tuesday nights because it's $5,
Yeah.
And
popcorn's cheaper.
When there's a zillion people there, and you got all these sweaty people packed into a tiny theater.
Hey, what's up, other cheap asses?
Yeah, other equally cheap people. $5 for a movie ticket, and we're going to spend $50 in, because then that theater has the beer and the burgers and the chicken that you can bring in and everything.
You can bring in. Oh, nice. I'm interested in that.
Okay, so she said, her and her friend, we're going to see that Baby Driver. I'm like, no, you're not. She's like, oh yeah, it looks kind of good. I'm like,
Tuesday?
And then I told her, I'm like, it's the guy, the Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz and World's End, that's like, oh, and she hates those movies. I'm like, you will not. So she didn't end up seeing it.
She didn't?
No. Anyway, we gotta fly here.
Sorry, 8.4 out of 10 on IMDb, 97% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Michael Thomas seems to be a little bit polarizing this year. Where do you guys stand on him? Great show. Thanks, Gabe in Trufant, Michigan. Thomas is going at the 201, Dave. A little bit rich for me. I know he could put up crazy stats.
I'm a little off him because Cooks is gone. There's a little bit of a change. Even though he's supposed to get a lot more targets, he's also get double coverage.
You know who I like in that offense this year? That I will have on a lot of teams?
Fleener?
Willie Snead. No.
Actually, I like Snead.
Snead's the new Fleener.
I like Snead.
Except for he's good. Hello, Dave and Eric. Any insight into who the best value is in the Green Bay backfield this season? John in Raleigh, North Carolina. Ty Montgomery at the 410, Jamal Williams at the 1306, or Aaron Jones at the 1809?
Man, you know what? I'll take, because the Packers' offense is great, I'll take shots at all those. I'll take shots all over the place.
I probably will not take any shots at Jamal Williams. I was reading something the other day, like some analyst wrote, like, look, we all know if Ty Montgomery gets hurt, it's going to be the same thing as last year. They're just going to pass. They're not going to all of a sudden have Jamal Williams play a big role in this offense, which may or may not be true. But I will say this. Seen a lot of pretty successful high-stakes players snaking Aaron Jones late in drafts, 17th, 18th, 19th round. So
it's honestly funny. You can make just those little tips like Martavis Bryant, Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
Just put that in the back of your head.
Greg in White Plains, New York, final email. Is Brandon Cooks in for a massive year in New England? Cooks going at the 305 in drafts. He's another guy. Seen a lot of pretty good high-stakes players. I
love Brandon Cooks. I think his talent is amazing. He's great.
New England gave up a ton to get him, first-round pick to get him.
I mean, the signs are all there, and I think the 305 is actually pretty reasonable. I mean, it's not that expensive. Everybody thinks that Brady's going to spread it around, and he's that talented of a quarterback to do that. I just think that Cooks will command the ball. I think he's a playmaker. Even with Gronk healthy as he's going to be, I think Cooks will command the ball.
Brandon Cooks or Alshon Jeffrey?
Oh man, I'll take Cooks still.
I agree. Let's just do this quick. Yeah. Brandon Cooks or Allen Robinson?
Cooks.
I agree. Brandon Cooks or Demaryius Thomas?
I was Demaryius Thomas because he's the bona fide number one target.
I think I would take Thomas there as well, although I like both those guys this year.
Yeah, it's tough to take Demaryius Thomas and garbage, crappy quarterback versus Brandon Cooks and Brady. Yeah. It's so tough to do that.
You know what else it's tough to do?
I might have to. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens if I had to actually make that decision.
You know what else is tough to do?
What's it?
End the show when we're having this much fun, but we have to do it, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank Steve Rizas for coming on tonight. A lot of fun talking to him. I also want to thank Dave Gerzak, the FFPC, Rob Bryson. Show on Friday next week. We'll be doing the show on Wednesday, 10/9 Central. Wednesday night, multiple main event league champs Rob Gallucci and Ryan Gawkin will be on the show. Sign up for the Football Guys Players Championship and main event at myffpc.com. Sats, double-ups, all available there as well. Podcastawards.com. Nominate the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour in the People's Choice and Sports category. Scott Engel in the HOF Hour is up next.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Him again, the sound the engine in is like a bird. You see fireworks and Corvette tires skirt the boulevard. I know how you work, I know just who you are. See, use a picture on my trolley switches.
I feel like this is our year for the Podcast Awards. We're on the site. The magic can happen. You feeling it? By the way,
Of course you don't.
Well, we'll find out in a little bit.
No, we won't.
Do you have college credits or an associate's degree? At Rasmussen College, we think that experience should count toward your bachelor's program. That's why we made transferring credits simple and even offer some courses that let you finish faster if you already know the material. The result? You can enroll in one of 9 accelerated business programs for under $8,500 a year. Learn how the experience you already have can take you further at rasmussen.edu. Price reflects total full-time cost, including fees. See rasmussen.edu/tuition for complete cost details.